I will be talking about the factors influencing consumption of animal-sourced foods. So to take you to Timor, Timor faces a number of problems with undernutrition. From the 2013 Food and Nutrition Survey, we know that 50% of children under 5 experience chronic undernutrition as measured by stunting. 63% of children 6 months to 5 years have anemia, with 19% due to iron insufficiency, and 73% of children 6 months to 2 years consume an inadequately diverse diet. So the last demographic and health survey found that 88% of households own livestock, with chickens and pigs being the most commonly kept. And Timor-Leste is considered a lower middle income country, and the GDP per capita is $4,300. However, livestock is still prioritized for sale as income rather than for consumption. Indeed, when you go back to the Food and Nutrition Survey, it found that in the previous day, only 25% of children 6 to 23 months consumed dairy, 24% consumed meat or fish, and 23% consumed eggs. And in children 24 to 59 months, so 2 to 5 years, we found similar figures. Now, we're particularly interested in animal-sourced food consumption because of their nutritional benefits, so I'm going to quickly recap some of those. So first of all, animal-sourced foods provide multiple micronutrients at the same time, which is really useful because micronutrient deficiencies rarely occur singularly. They provide micronutrients in bioavailable forms, such as heme iron and retinol, which are easily absorbed and ready for use. And they also contain vitamin B12, which is not found in foods of plant origin. Consuming animal-sourced foods as part of a diet also increases the uptake of less bioavailable nutrients. They are easily digestible proteins of high quality because they can contain amino acid profiles that are similar to what the body needs. And then they are also nutrient dense, so small amounts of animal source foods can significantly increase the nutrient adequacy of a diet based on staple crops. Importantly, because only small amounts of animal source foods are required, this is incredibly beneficial for young children with small stomach capacities and for people who can only consume a limited amount of food, such as those who are sick and have no appetite. So, what are the factors influencing either inhibiting or enhancing the ability of households to consume animal source foods in Timor-Leste? This is the answer that we were seeking as part of our larger research project. So our current research in Timor-Leste is being conducted in 3 geographically and linguistically distant regions, to the east, the west, and more centrally in Timor-Leste. We work in 3 pilot villages that are participating in a vaccination for village chickens, which aims to improve the health and production of chickens by controlling Newcastle disease. At the start, we determined that there were 3 distinct seasons, which were a dry season, a season with heavy rain, and one with light rain, and we collect our quantitative data seasonally. This is a longitudinal mixed method study, and for our quantitative data, we monitor maternal and child dietary diversity, maternal and child anthropometry, and also infant and young child hemoglobin levels. So for this talk, I'm only going to present a portion of the maternal and child dietary diversity, which is animal source food consumption. So what we found when we looked at animal source food consumption across the different villages, we found that there were quite distinct differences. So in one village, we found that mothers consumed, only 10% of mothers, roughly, consumed animal source food in the previous day, compared to our other village, which consumed mothers about 50% of mothers consumed animal source foods in the previous day. This was relatively consistent across the seasons. So then we explored this further in our qualitative study. For our qualitative study, we used semi-structured key informant interviews and sex-disaggregated focus group discussions. And we also observed household practices while we were living in the villages. Over the baseline in Year 1 studies, we conducted 10 interviews and a total of 32 focus group discussions. And animal source food consumption was discussed in a portion of these. So these were our findings. From 4 key informant interviews and 15 focus group discussions where we discussed animal source food consumption, all groups stated that the most common reason or opportunity for households to consume animal source foods was for social or cultural events or ceremonies. Social reasons included families or visitors that were coming from afar, for whom a chicken would be slaughtered and consumed together. And cultural ceremonies included those performed to diagnose or cure illness, and those to bring good luck to harvests. So the differences, there were differences that we noticed between the discussion groups from the different villages. And we found that only one interview and one discussion group from the village that consumed the least amount of animal source food said that they don't practice cultural ceremonies at all. From the same village, we had different groups come up with only 6 different cultural ceremonies that they do observe. And then for the village that consumed a medium amount of animal source foods, they cited 10 different ceremonies, and for the village that consumed the most amount of animal source food, cited 17. And we did note that the 17 ceremonies that they did observe, some of them went for a much longer duration than in the other villages. So this increased the opportunities for people in these villages to consume animal source food. The second finding that we had was that 15 out of 15 groups also discussed socioeconomic reasons for not being able to consume animal source foods. Almost all of the participants stated that they would like to consume more animal source foods. However, the households reserved their own livestock for sale to cover household necessities. One man did say that, "Inanehan osandet," which means to eat animals is just like eating money. And this was a sentiment that was echoed by a number of different people. And lastly, in some of our discussions about gender roles in households, another theme emerged. We found that only women from the villages that had high level of animal source food consumption reported the ability to make independent decisions about slaughtering chickens for household consumption and also selling chickens to purchase other foods. So in detail, 4 out of the 7 focus group discussions stated that these decisions have to be made together. So adult members or the husband and wife have to come together and discuss it before these things can be decided. In one group of men from the village with a medium amount of animal source food consumption, they stated that only men can make these decisions independently, and in the village that had the highest amount of animal source food consumption, 2 different women's groups stated that women can make these decisions independently of men. So women from these groups said that they can decide to slaughter a chicken, or they can decide to sell if they want to eat chicken, or if there are no vegetables at home. And then they just tell their husbands when they get home. So, in conclusion, we know that animal source food consumption has great potential to enhance physical and cognitive development of growing children. However, the presence of livestock within households does not equate to animal source food consumption. We know that in Timor-Leste, men and women living in rural villages would increase their animal source food consumption if it was accessible. So the possible avenues for increasing animal source food consumption in Timor include improvement of household socioeconomic status and greater empowerment of women. And we think that agricultural programs that improve the production and health of small livestock species that are under the control of women can meet both of those requirements. And lastly, I just wanted to point out that I think this study really highlights the importance of using mixed methodologies in order to be able to recognise patterns and then explore them further. Thank you.